The HAVENBELL Trilogy, Book 2, The Scepter of ZANE, written by Allison Hunt, copyright 2011. Chapter 11, ORTSO. Cheyenne awoke in unusual surroundings. She had been moved in her sleep. There was no longer a cage or a harp. She was in a dome-shaped hut, and there were 5 Drakens inside with her. 4 guarded the door. "Am I in Drake? Where's Duran? You have to let me go. All the wizards are looking for me. I'm the tri-breed. You must let me go or they will kill you all." They looked at her, but none would say anything. She spread her wings and flew as much as she could around the room. They eyed her in awe, for they had never seen wings before. When she tried for the door, all 5 closed in tight and drew their spears on her. She landed and backed off. "You don't understand. I'm a prisoner, and Duran is a very bad man." She was angry, so she tried her hardest to use her mind on them. "Let me go," she demanded, but they held strong. She gave up and sat down on the large, low bed. She sighed. She realized she was wearing different clothing. Her old ones were worn, and she now wore a Draken gown. It was burgundy with purple patches and golden ribbons. That was all they had here, she guessed. So Draken clothing is super, super sexy. So I'll just put that out there because it's super, super sexy, because it's really hot where they're at and it's sexy. She tried to search their minds and got nothing. One of them brought her some food. "No, I won't eat it. Why can't I feel anything from you?" The guard held the plate of food towards her. She got an idea. She suddenly grabbed the guard's arm. She saw a piece of something and screamed to his mind to let her go. His eyes grew big and he backed up silently. "Who is Madrin? Who killed Madrin?" No one answered, and she began to cry. She lay on the bed again. She immediately closed her eyes and used all of her will to channel Zach. "I'm in Drake, Zach. Don't go to ORTSO. He's waiting. I'm in Drake." A new Draken guard came in. He came to her and held out a potion. "Drink this." "I'm not eating or drinking from you." He pulled out a handful of pink powder from his side and blew it into her eyes. "Drink this," he repeated. There was much to ponder before they landed in ORTSO. They were warned about the centaur from the other ships and had killed them all before they arrived. They piled the bodies on the shore. They didn't have a very large army, not enough to beat the population of Ortsons. Sending just the strong leaders to find Duran wouldn't quite work either. They would need all of the help that they could get, even if it cost them their lives. The one advantage they had was the Josepharians. They could look over the whole land, find the routes they needed, and warn them of approaching armies. The Feathers were decent archers who could attack from above. The strength in this group lay with them. Before they beached, they sent the first group of Feathers to scout the land. They returned with sore news. There was a desert followed by many cliffs, and canyons ahead, too many to count. It was the same around the island. If they were to choose a different location, it would not be much of a shortcut. They decided to start through the sand. Here on the outskirts, there didn't seem to be much population. They hunted, fed, and slept. Nezha and the guard stood watch in shifts. In 2 more days, they came to the cliffs. The Feathers flew above and directed them to the safest crevice to climb. They would show each other their findings and agree on the best route to lead the troops. They slowly climbed, then descended 3 peaks at a slow, difficult speed. When they came to what seemed an almost impossible wall of rock, it was steep and enormous. No matter what they chose to do, this would hold them up for a while. The wall was so steep that only an elf or a Draken could scale the small protrusions. Everyone else would have to be flown out of the canyon. Nezha flew, and Jasha was flown halfway up, where there was a decent ledge and the Feathers could see a path in which to climb. The Feathers went back down to fly the others up to this point. Half of the army was lifted to this spot. This is where the Ortsons made their attack. The top of the wall of crags became full of thousands of Ortsons. They intended to wipe out their enemy right here, for they knew how to truly maneuver through it. Nezha ordered the Feathers to use all of their men to shoot the Ortsons from above. They were decent shots, but the Ortsons wore heavy armor that shielded the arrows. Getting closer to them would be dangerous, for the Ortsons were expert at hand-on-hand combat, and they were very strong. Some of them returned and began flying the others out one at a time. They had no defense on the wall, and the Ortsons were already descending upon them, shooting arrows. At this distance, most of the arrows fell short. The wizards had no chance of a fair fight unless they made it to flat land. The Ortsons began to roll large boulders off of the top of the wall. They crashed as they ricocheted indiscriminately back and forth down the wall. Some of their troops were crushed. "Retreat to the canyon floor! Save your lives!" The stones kept rolling and cracking on their way down. The feathers grabbed as many off of the cliff as they could, dodging the falling boulders. After a few minutes, the rocks stopped coming. The Ortson army had made progress down to meet them. They knew all of the secrets, and even had tunnels to which they began to hide. The top remained full of Ortsons, and even more appeared. Then they unloaded their cargo and began to spill barrels of foul-smelling liquid down the cliffs. They shot flamed arrows down the cliffside, and the cliff began to burn. "Retreat! Save your lives!" Many caught on fire, and many died. The feathers couldn't get close to the heat. Jasha and Nezha used all of their strength to extinguish the flames, but to no avail. They were plucked up by feathers and placed back upon the bottom of the cliff. "We will need all of the wizards to penetrate ORTSO. This is a horrible mess," Nezha said sadly. Jasha was crying. She may be a warrior, she may be a wizard, but she was still a woman. Only the feathers themselves, and 17 of their army were left alive. "Danger! Look behind you!" a feather screamed. Turning around, they saw that the other cliff was full of them as well, and they were coming even faster. There were thousands more of them. "Surrender, Jasha! Save your life! We are all going to die!" Both sides were trapping them in, but the armies behind them reached the bottom first and were screaming battle cries. "They're Drakens!" Nezha shouted. "Come with us," one of them said to them. His, as well as the rest of the Drakens' faces, were covered in war paint of different colors and patterns. Only the Drakens understood what these patterns meant. "We're here to conquer his kingdom, and we need your magic." Nezha and Jasha smiled. They followed the Drakens. When they got to the start of the wall, the Draken grabbed Jasha and shot his grappling hook and lifted her halfway to the top. It took 2 more shots before they reached the top of the cliff. Nezha flew and guided the Josepharians. They clashed at the top. Some Drakens were kicked off or had their ropes cut by the swords of the Ortsons. The feathers continued to shoot arrows at them. There were twice as many Drakens than Ortsons, but their armor was nothing compared to the girth of the ogres. Then Nezha and Jasha saw something amazing. The Drakens each held a small object. They pointed these strange things, and beams of lightning came out from them. When these beams hit the metal armor of the ogres, it shocked and fried them lifeless. Many Ortsons fell, one after the other. Hundreds, then thousands perished, and no blood was shed. They cut right through these guys like walking through water. The many Drakens spread out about the land to cover every inch of it, every crevice, every dwelling. They were to search for ogres. The Draken army flooded Duran's kingdom like a black curtain. They came from all directions, for they had beached ships all around the island, and all met here at the kingdom. It was quite easy to get in. Jasha and Nezha read everyone's mind that they encountered inside before they were fried, that is. Neither had the power of verbal persuasion. They could only read minds. They found nothing about Duran in any of them. They reached the top of the castle and found the room with the cage and harp. The cage was open. She was here. She is no longer. Nobody knew anything. Damn, he's a tricky one indeed, the head Draken turned to speak with them. Many of us are staying here to wait for him if he returns. You must take who's left of you and return to your group. Why would you fight for us? None of you are allowed to leave and return. Drakens don't fight for anyone in HAVENBELL. We were ordered to. Our king detests this king. Lucky us. Yes. They returned to their ship and headed to the sea under Josepharis Section 1 to meet up with the rest of the Wizards of HAVENBELL. Zach insisted that they head straight to ORTSO and find Cheyenne. He knew she was there. I wouldn't skip that meeting, Zach. You've done enough already, and you are disobedient to your father. He's the head of the council, and you don't obey him. Yes, I know. You and I can find her, and we still have time before the meeting. I'm leaving, you idiots. I don't agree with either of you. There will be a price to pay, each of you. Zach, don't go to ORTSO. Garrett was a fairy after all, so we pushed with all he had. It should have worked, but there was something in Zach's heart he could not change or touch, and that was Cheyenne. Garrett flew off in a huff and left Evan and Zach on Polar Mist. "Great! We lost our fairies, Zach!" "I don't care. I have faith in you. Let's go to the mountains first to gather and rest. ORTSO is not that far away." When they got off the ship and made it to land, Duran was there waiting for them.